or to kind of get everybody on here.
It's funny. I saw you playing the headbands game. My kids love that game. We always
Really?
have fun playing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just heard about it.
It's a fun one.
Yeah, I like it because it gets them to start spelling better, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
That is cool. A lot in common. What you doing this weekend?
What am I doing this weekend? I started doing CrossFit, believe it or not. So I have a session in the morning with a trainer. And
Nice.
I have plans with friends on Sunday, and the kids, I'm sure. My complex where I live has a pool. I live in like a townhouse complex. So we go to the pool and stuff. So.
Nice. Hey, Roundup family, thank you for joining us. It is Attorney Time Fridays. So I'm not getting that same spirit that I usually get, Jessica.
From me?
On that Friday. No. Is it?
Yeah. Well, you know what?
What?
I'm trying to temper it a little bit because my new philosophy is that every day should be Friday, right? I shouldn't be so excited on Friday. I am the master of my own calendar. I control my time, right? So what difference does it make whether it's Monday or Friday? So I'm trying to, kind of embrace that.
New philosophy.
Yes.
Well, I had to tell you, I'm sure, no doubt, people would kill to be in your shoes, but I don't know.
I think that I think it's really the way it's all mindset. And that's what I'm learning, really.
It is.
That you decide whether or not you say, I have plenty of time in the day, or I don't have time. I'm so busy, right?
Either way, you're right.
Like the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset. And so I've been working on changing my own language from, I don't have time. How am I going to get more time to, I have time and I will prioritize what's important to me.
Wow.
Right. It's like our time on Friday is important to me. So it's always on my calendar.
Nice.
I choose where my time is spent.
Wow.
So
that is cool. That is so cool.
It's a growth process.
You know what? I think either way, you're right. Either you have the time or you don't. Either way, your decision is correct.
That's right.
Let's do this. Roundup family, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time hanging out with us, I am Chris Haskins. I'm a real estate investor. You know, my mission, my ministry is to raise your financial literacy through real estate investing and entrepreneurship. And on Fridays, I have the grand honor of hanging out with Attorney Jessica Segal. What's up, Jessica?
Hello, everybody. Now, the honor is indeed mine. It's great. This is one of the highlights of my week. I really do love hanging out with you, and we always have a good time kind of elevating ourselves, which I love.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. And during our brainstorming sessions during the week, Jessica and I talk more than Fridays. We have these topics and stuff we come up with, and we felt that today would be a good day to talk about LLCs, advantages.
Yes. I get this question every week from my clients. What entity should I form? Do I even need to have one? And I think a lot of people just get blindly told, have an LLC, and they go and file it, but they don't really understand why. They don't really know how to properly maintain it. And they don't truly understand the benefit and the risk of having it. And so I thought that would be a great topic for us to kind of really explain why I do think the LLC is such a fantastic resource for people. But you should understand it. You shouldn't just be told what to have.
Yeah, I think we and especially with real estate investors, everybody's just like, get your LLC.
Right. And it's a great tool, but as we always discuss, it's just one piece of the bigger tool or system, right? Because we talk a lot about having your land trust to keep you anonymous, the LLC to give you the liability protection, insurance to kind of wrap it all up together. There's all these different pieces to the puzzle, right? So the important thing for people to realize, though, is at the end of the day, as a trial attorney, I've learned so much by watching people, basically get hurt, that I can now warn people, this is why you want an LLC. But if you don't maintain it properly, it's not going to give you that liability protection that you paid all the money for to set it up.
Yeah, that's what I want to see about.
So, we'll start just at the very basic point. A lot of people they put things in their own name. Okay. They're excited to get a deal. Something falls in their lap. So they will just open things in their own name, bank accounts in their own name, or buy a property in their own name. Sometimes you'll open up or register a DBA, a doing business as account. Okay.
That's still under your social though, right?
That's
DBA?
Under your social security number. And the important thing for people to realize is, yes, it gives you the ability to open up a business bank account so you can separate your personal funds a little bit, but it offers you zero liability protection, none. So if somebody gets hurt and they want to sue you, they're suing you personally.
Yep. Okay.
So there is really, from my perspective, dealing with lawsuits every day and theft and fraud every day. If you're in the type of business where you're at risk for a lawsuit for somebody to get injured or hurt or sick, to keep things in your own personal name is putting your own bank account and home and anything you've worked so hard for at risk. Okay. So some people say, well, I don't own anything. I rent an apartment. I have, $1,000 in my bank account. Yeah. I don't really care. There's nothing to get from me. And that's okay if you're starting out and you don't have $500 to register an LLC yet. Okay. And you're like, well, I got nothing. You can't take anything from me if I've got nothing.
Wow.
So in that case, I tell people, make sure you have really good insurance coverage and start budgeting for your LLC. Okay. And then as soon as you have that budget for that LLC saved, then that's your next step. The LLC, limited liability company, as a single member, meaning just you open it. Maybe it's you and your spouse, but basically it's just you. It is such a powerful tool for you because it gives you personal liability protection. You are now completely a separate entity from your business. And that is critical for lawsuits. So let's say you own your own home, or let's say you have a retirement account with some money in it, or you have, 2 to 3 months of living expenses saved up in your emergency account, and somebody just, trips and falls at your rental property and you don't have enough insurance coverage. If you have the LLC, they can't go after your personal home, your bank accounts, your retirement accounts. They're limited to the assets in that LLC.
That particular asset?
Yes. Okay. So I try and tell people who say, I don't want to spend the money on that, to look at it as a business expense. First of all, it's a tax write-off. But aside from that, if you can't wrap your head around spending $200 to $400, depending on the state you're in, to form an LLC, to buy a property worth $50,000, let's say, at a minimum, right?
Yeah. Most
properties are going to be more than that. Maybe you shouldn't really be in business, okay? Because it's a business expense.
That is an expense.
So I always tell people, see the forest for the trees. Okay. I know you're just starting out and maybe you don't want to spend like I said, the $200 to $400 to form it yourself, let's say, or an attorney, between $750 and $1,000. I get that. Mm-hmm. But you have to say to yourself, if somebody takes a header and cracks their skull open, I'm going to wish I spent that $400, $500 to form my LLC. Wow. You're going to say, why didn't I do that? So I tell my clients when they balk at the expense, whether you do it yourself or you hire me, it's just a business expense. It's no different than paying for insurance, paying for your PO box, paying for your office supplies at Staples.
Wow.
If you're in the rental property or investment property business, setting up your entity is a business expense. And when you frame it that way, I think people really get it and they agree and they understand. I'm not trying to sell anybody a product. Okay. I provide consultation and advice. Okay. That's really the bulk of it. This is what I suggest. If you want to do it, great. And I'll help you figure out how to do it. But at least be aware of the risk if you don't set it up. Now,
Right.
the only caveat I'll throw in is, people are watching all over the country. Okay. So in New York, we don't have what's called a series LLC. Okay. But they do exist in other states. I'm only admitted in New York, but there are plenty of attorneys that can set up outside of, anywhere in the country, what's called a series LLC. So if you have multiple properties, if you have 10 or more properties, you can set up, have somebody set up this series LLC for you. And so each property is part of that one parent LLC.
I heard you talk about that before.
In New York, I don't have that type of, I'd love to be that one day, but that's not me. You have, just if you have a couple of properties, 4 or 5 properties, my suggestion is you set up, you have to look at how much is the property worth. If you have a property that's worth $300,000, you're going to put that in an LLC by itself. If you have maybe 3 or 4 properties, that are worth, 200 or 300,000, maybe you'll put a few properties in the one LLC.
Mm-hmm.
But the basic concept is, if somebody sues that LLC, they only get the assets in that LLC. So if you only have a $50,000 condo in that LLC, they can't touch the $300,000 multifamily property you also own.
Gotcha.
Okay, so it's sort of like compartmentalizing your risk.
Mm.
Okay, so that's the biggest benefit to an LLC, and that's why I love them. Nobody's coming after my house that I live in. This is a business-owned property. If something goes wrong, I have insurance coverage, I have the LLC, and that's where the liability should end. Now, the key to maintaining your liability protection, which is why everybody forms an LLC, is to maintain it properly. And the biggest thing for that is do not commingle funds. Do not mix your personal funds and your business funds interchangeably. Do not buy groceries for your house on your business LLC credit card. These are just basic things. You can legitimately move money back and forth if, let's say, you need to put some personal money into the LLC account to pay bills, but you should be keeping a track of it, keep a record of it, so that if you need to reimburse yourself or you create a loan, there's all kinds of legitimate ways, but don't just start using the LLC bank account as your personal piggy bank. Okay. If you're, you just basically haphazardly throwing money back and forth, you're going to lose that liability protection.
And how we say lose the liability, is that from somebody doing a subpoena and getting your bank records or something?
Yes. So that's what happens when you get sued. You're required to turn over your bank statements, credit card statements. All of that is routine discovery.
Wow.
And so you look to see where is money going.
Nasty.
So yeah. So from that perspective, the question, and this is why I really advise people to have a consultation with an attorney. Okay. Because, we're giving just broad general advice, but every investor is different. It depends on where you live in the country. It depends on the value of properties. But the basic premise is that your property is in the LLC, you follow the rules, and that gives you liability protection, and it's wonderful. The other, most notable thing about it is the tax benefits, okay? Because, it's a single member LLC, meaning just you don't report anything. You're not required to file your operating agreement anywhere. It's just you running your business. It's very informal. You can, kind of make your own rules up in terms of how you're running your business. But you get the benefit of tax write-offs and things for the house that you wouldn't get if it was in your personal name. And so I always encourage people to have a good CPA that knows real estate investing specifically.
Challenging.
And an attorney who knows real estate investing. Listen, there are, hundreds of thousands of CPAs and attorneys. We do business online all the time. You don't have to use the town CPA if they'd never dealt with real rental property before. Okay. You can retain the services of a CPA anywhere in the country
Wow.
that, specializes in top tips and guidance for real estate investors, because we are in a different sort of world. There's things that we can write off that, like maybe a gym owner can't, right? There's going to be different things. So when I search for my own accountant, I love the fact that he's knowledgeable about specifically real estate, and so that I can get every legitimate benefit through my LLC. Okay. And it's all streamlined right on your tax return. Okay. It's not a separate tax return. It passes right through. Okay.
That's true.
And then just to add another layer to it, when you're an LLC, single member LLC, you have the option to be taxed as an S election, an S corporation. Okay, so as an LLC, you get the benefit of being taxed, all the tax breaks that come with being a corporation, without having to set up all the complexities of a corporation, like with a board of directors and filing all kinds of, financial statements and shareholder rules and all of those things. Mm-hmm. So the benefit to having the S election, and again, you talk to your accountant about this, I'm not giving tax advice, is now it also changes how you can plan for retirement. Okay. And plan for health insurance and all of these things that a business owner can do that a sole proprietor can't. Okay. And so, the only way to figure out what the best entity is for you is to have a consultation with an accountant and an attorney, get all the information you can, and then you make a decision what's best for you, where you live, your business goals. And as you get bigger and bigger, as your income grows, as the number of doors you have changes, you're going to revisit what the best structure is for you. You can have multiple structures. Some people have an LLC just as a property management side of their business and then put properties in different LLCs. Some people create an actual S corporation for the day-to-day running of their business, but put their properties in a single LLC. There's so many different options for you, but it all circles back to, on the most basic level, liability protection, separating your home and your personal bank accounts from the business side of risk. Okay. Keep all the risk outside of your personal name. The other benefit to setting up an LLC, you get a credit card in the name of the LLC. Okay. So you're not necessarily affecting your personal credit score. Let's say you need to get a car loan in your personal name. If you have a lot of debt on your business credit card, it's not going to affect your personal credit score to get a good rate for, to get your loan for your everyday family car. So, there's a lot of perks to that as well.
So you're saying we could use this credit line here, Jessica, we could perhaps use a tax ID on that credit line?
Right. So your LLC gets its own bank account, gets its own credit card, gets its own line of credit. You can get a small business loan. It's all going to be, though, in the business name. And as a business, you get your own business credit score. Okay. You can look into Dun & Bradstreet credit scores. It becomes its own entity separate from you.
Right.
Okay. And that's what we want. What I try to convey to people is a rental property is wonderful, it's a great investment, and we all love the monthly cash flow or the appreciation or the tax benefits, but it is a huge risk. Okay. That's where a lot of lawsuits come from. Somebody gets hurt, something gets damaged, whatever. So you have to protect yourself as well. You have to, embrace the concept of the benefit and the risk, and you try and protect yourself as much as you can from risk.
Much as you can.
Yeah.
So this pass-through thing, Jessica, could you kind of break that down a little bit more regarding how that works for my audience that may not understand?
Sure. So basically, just to kind of, I'm certainly not up on accounting terms. Okay. But I can say this, it's really easy. My accountant basically does everything on my one tax return, and I get a separate schedule for my rental income that I have to report, for all my expenses and utilities. It's put like on a schedule, but it's attached to it passes through directly to my personal tax return. Okay.
Right.
So it's like, when you have 1099s from, if you do freelancing work for people, it all still goes on your personal tax return. Okay. You're using, so let me just say this, you will get a separate EIN, employer ID number for your LLC, but it's all going to be put onto your personal tax return.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. I don't want to scare them. People may be scared. They got to file a separate tax return and then all the paperwork.
No, it's really not. I basically just hand over all my, I keep I'm very simple. It's a Excel spreadsheet of rental income, expenses, whatever I spent on the property for the year. And I give it to him with all my legal income statements. And it's just all put on one tax return. It is not complicated. If you're going to if you do your taxes yourself, well, that, I can't comment. I don't know. But if somebody prepares your taxes for you, it's really no different. You give them the information about your LLC. They're going to need the filing receipt. They're going to need the EIN number, and that's it. They do the rest for you. The other thing to keep in mind is you have to report, like in New York, it's a biannual. Every state is different. Every 2 years, you have to make sure you tell the state that you're still in business. This is my address, and you pay a small fee for it. And your accountant can also help you with these forms. It's very, very little extra work.
Nice.
To set up an LLC. You can set it up in 24 hours, and the protection is so worth it.
Nice. How about, we were mentioning about multiple member LLCs, and what is your recommendation? I want to know your opinion.
Yes.
Especially for my real estate.
Okay. So
it could get real tricky,
I'll tell you, I don't want to discourage people from having partnerships with people, be multiple member. I'm using the term partner, but a legal partnership is its own entity. I don't want to confuse that. But in terms of talking about an LLC and different members, I'm using the term partner interchangeably. But let's say you and a friend become partners. You're 50% owners, members of this LLC. It's great. It's great to have somebody else to help you with the day-to-day of your business, contribute money, share the responsibilities. But when there's two of you involved, you're also potentially risking a business breakup. So I caution people, be really, really careful who you invite into your business bedroom. Okay. Because you can have a joint venture agreement with somebody. Okay. Joint venture agreement means you are not co-owners of this business. You are separate entities who've come together for a specific purpose. Those are wonderful. Okay. So if somebody comes up to you and says, listen, I have all this cash, I'd love to invest, and you don't really know them that well, do a joint venture agreement. Don't just jump into a 50-50 LLC, because if you find out down the line they're crazy or unethical or stealing from you, now you've got to spend thousands of dollars on attorney's fees to get out. Okay. Which is something I'm dealing with right now for a client. Okay. You think you know somebody, they seem trustworthy, and the next thing you know, they're looting your bank accounts and locking the doors to your own building.
Wow.
Okay. So you don't truly know somebody. And, and I say this even with family members. Okay. So, my article this month is for you on your newsletter is going to be, what are the steps you can do to make sure you are active in your partnership, to make sure you don't get taken advantage of.
Nice.
But that being said, multi-member can be great, but I really hope it's with somebody that you truly know and trust. And don't go into it without a very solid operating agreement, spelling out who has access to what, who can spend money, who can take on debt. Like, what do you do if your partner decides to take out a $50,000 loan on the business that you never would have authorized? right? What do you do when your business partner opens up 5 new credit cards and goes to Aruba? Okay. So these things actually happen. Like these are the clients I deal with, right? I've heard every horror story you can imagine. So at the most basic level, do a Facebook search, do a Google search. Somebody approaches you and says, I want to do business with you.
Yep.
Look them up. Look them up on social media. See, was there any news articles about them? What do they post on Facebook? You know, what kind of businesses were they in before? Have they been sued before? Okay. Go into your county clerk website, put their name in, see if there's any lawsuits against them. Are there judgments against them? Do some basic due diligence before you share your business baby with them. Okay. Because once you're in, it's easy to get in. Let me tell you something. You sign a document, you're in. Getting out is not easy. There are a lot of rules. And especially if someone has hijacked your business and locked you out, you have to go to court to force a dissolution of the business. Okay.
Wow.
So
nasty.
It really is. It's scary. It's scary to know that you've lost control over your business. So I just caution people, you know, consider whether a joint venture type deal is better than actually becoming business partners together.
And then inside the LLC.
Inside the LLC. And here's my other advice. If you decide to go that route, you don't have to necessarily be equal partners. Okay. Maybe you want to be 60-40. Maybe you want to be 70-30. Maybe you want to have, you know, more voting right or more ability to block access to financial accounts. You know, maybe this new member doesn't get access to bank accounts until they've proven themselves. Okay. You can negotiate any terms you want with your LLC. It's totally flexible. So, you know, some people think, well, he's giving me all this money, so I have to make him a 50-50 partner, but you don't. People can just be silent partners. People can just be financial investors and you work out loan terms. You know, there's all kinds of creative things you can do without necessarily giving up 50% of your business.
Well,
Okay.
it seems to be more simple to me in my experience. You know, I'm not an expert regarding entity structuring, but to me, it seemed to be, if I've got my LLC, you have your LLC, we come together on the joint venture, do the deal. We can revisit this after this deal's over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you, like my LLCs are just me. I'm not bringing on a partner. I'm not. Even I'll be honest with you, even a family, I don't because I don't want to create an awkward situation. I've seen it even with like an aunt and a niece. I've seen it with husband and wife who are now going through a divorce.
Good Lord.
You know, it's just
you must have seen everything. I mean,
I really have. Yeah. So one of the things you can do ahead of time, everybody's heard of a prenuptial agreement before you get married, right? So they have basically business divorce agreements. You can agree ahead of time. If this business falls apart, this is what we get. You get this, I get that. We agree to dissolution. We're going to pre-sign things, execute documents so that it's a clean break and there's no argument.
Nice.
Okay. So there's all kinds of documents that an attorney can prepare for you before you decide to merge with somebody else.
Nice. Sounds good. So we talked about the multiple member. That's what my main thing was, the multiple member. And then even if you have multiple members, Jay, who's going to file? I mean, don't we have to deal with tax returns on that then also? Right.
So multiple members get a K-1. So basically you each get your income reported on a K-1, which is another just sort of document your accountant prepares for you. You each get, you know, depending on your percentage of ownership, that's how your profit and loss is taken.
Mm-hmm. Still, that's more to me. I don't know. It just seems like it's more work involved other than the joint venture.
Right. I mean, it's something that you really need to give serious thought to. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying you need to give serious thought to it. Like, so for example, I've had situations where it's two people, they're coming together and they're both going to be, they're 50-50 members. And they've put in place, they're really smart. They've put in place very strict rules.
Mhm.
You know, if you're spending more than $1,000, you need written consent of the other partner.
I like that.
You cannot open a credit card or a loan or any sort of debt without written consent of the other partner. And the reason that's important is if your partner goes rogue and starts taking on all this debt and you go to court, you will not be personally liable for that business debt if your partner acted outside the scope of your operating agreement. Or worse, if there's language in your operating agreement should say, if the partner is intentionally doing something fraudulent or taking money that he's not legally entitled to pursuant to your agreed salary, requirements, things like that, the court will require them to reimburse the business account. There's all kinds of things you can put. The other thing too is if you're a multi-member, consider what happens if somebody dies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Right. Does that partner's family now take over that equity interest in your business?
That'd be hell.
Right. So you have to actually think through and plan for these things. What if your partner's in a car accident and is incapacitated and can't be a part of this business for months? What happens? They can't sign documents. They can't do it. Like, what are you left to do in running the business? Right.
That's nasty.
So all these are all things that you have to think through if there's multi-member LLCs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna stay away from that.
But the other great thing about an LLC, as you've talked about many times, is it's an interest in something. Okay. So the LLC actually owns the assets. You can always transfer very easily or assign your interest in this LLC to somebody else. So when you file an LLC, you are creating a marketable asset worth something, right? Because if you have a rental property and it's in your name and you want to sell it, that's one thing. But if you can turn around and say, look, I spent the money and put it in an LLC. I'm just going to assign you my interest in it, and they don't have to pay the money to set up the LLC. That's going to make your deal worth more.
Right.
Or same thing with a land trust. If you've already spent the money to set it up, that's marketable, makes it worth more in the deal. Always look for ways to get more money out of your deal, and having a trust or an LLC already set up makes your property worth more than the one down the street.
Nice.
Typically, not always, but
yeah.
So,
it's already set up that into the
right.
The estate planning aspect of the ownership of the house.
Right. Because, I always circle back to estate planning in my liability protection, my asset protection. How can I make it easy for my loved ones? Right. So, I've created this business, this rental property makes money. When I pass, they can basically just transfer it to my children to keep taking money out of it. Right. If it's in your personal name, it has to go through probate court and just all these hoops to jump through. Which
is not cheap, by the way.
It is not cheap.
How many times, I've had people ask me to pay for their fees, filing fees. You got to register. Yeah. You got to get a bond.
Oh, yeah.
So this is why, honestly, Jay, this is why I so much preach the land trust. How many hundreds of people that I've seen inherit a property, and then they're like $1,000 for the bond. They're like, what am I going to do?
Right. Absolutely. So, we were talking about what are the pros and cons. I see only pros with an LLC. The only con, if I have to think of anything, is you are more restricted in the types of financing you can get for an LLC versus your personal name. That's really the only con I can think of. Mm-hmm. A commercial loan for an LLC is going to be slightly different. The rates are going to be slightly higher, but again, don't get so focused on the interest rate. Okay. It's a business. It's a liability. You're going to pay a few dollars more in interest over the life of the mortgage, but that mortgage interest is a deduction. You have to think of all these things. Yep. At the end of the day, I'd rather pay a higher interest rate on a LLC owned property that's protected than pay less, so you just gotta think of the business side of it.
Did you get, Morgan, go get some? Share with that too, Jessica. And I want to make sure that our Roundup family understands that we can use these entities together regarding LLC and the trust stuff. That stuff can be kind of placed
Oh
together.
yes, I love to layer them. Okay. And you're the one who taught me that. Okay. So you can set up your trust and either the trustee or the beneficiary can be the LLC. And now you're kind of layering, keeping yourself anonymous with the liability protection. It's fantastic. The
see you
two go
smiling on
together
that one.
great.
I see you smiling on that one.
Right.
I love it too.
I
When you
love
think
it.
about it, it's like
I know. Yeah, it's fantastic. So I see, just trying to look at some of the questions people are popping up. Do you want me to
we're gonna get
answer
it.
some of
No, let's
those
do it. Yeah,
before yeah.
let's do it. Roundup
I only
family.
have a
Let's get
couple
to
more
the questions.
minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off. I mean, I wanted
Oh
to
no,
get your
that's
questions.
okay.
We need to
I
do
know we can go on and on about this topic.
Roundup family. Get your questions in quickly. You have the expert right here. Please get them in. She's here on my dime. I am sucking up the bill for this, so get the questions answered.
Right. So let me see.
Nellie Nell Rockwell wants to know.
Hugh,
Go ahead.
sorry. I was looking at Hugh Roberts. So
Go ahead.
moving property from your name to your LLC, you're going to form the LLC, you're going to redeed the property into the LLC name. You're going to change the bank accounts into the LLC name. So you set up your LLC, you get your new tax ID number, and you basically go to the bank and you transfer the name on the accounts to your LLC. You change the deed. Again, very small, easy steps, couple of dollars, and that's where you go over that. But the critical thing is when you move the property change the deed from your name to your LLC, make sure you update your insurance carrier so that the insured is now the LLC and not you personally. It's critical because if you don't update it, they could try later and disclaim you.
They love to do that.
Okay,
Nell.
so
Okay.
Nellie Nell says, when I sell property through my trust, who do I make the closing check out to? Is it to my trust or my LLC?
I'm presuming she's meaning who is.
I don't understand.
He wants to know when she sells her house, who does the closing company make the check to? Her trust or LLC?
The trust. The trust holds the assets.
Yep.
Well, let me say this. It depends. If the LLC is the beneficiary, then it's going to be the trustee. Basically, whoever you've decided is the trustee.
Yep.
The trust itself holds the assets. So that's who the check gets written out to.
Well, what we do is even if sometimes title companies, Jessica, they just don't understand that. I promise you, they just don't understand it.
I know.
They're like,
and so you need to just work with them and explain it to them. And that's why I say you got to have an attorney who gets it, because the attorney will call up the title company and say, hey, listen, this is what it is. You have to work on building your team of investors, investment team.
Let me tell you this real quick, Jake. This is a very important question. Sometimes the selling closing company or the selling attorney doesn't understand the trust because you're
okay.
I'm sorry, the buying side, because you're the seller. So the buyer's company is cutting the checks. So we have an affidavit on file with our title company that if they do make the check out in the trust, that our title company can switch it over to our LLC. It's nasty.
Okay.
It's nasty, Jessica, because the attorneys, they just don't understand how to make the checks out sometimes.
Yes. James Kennedy, yes. So even if you're a single member LLC, you have to do your operating agreement. And Chris and I are going to put together a template and provide some documents to you at a later episode. But you do want that because most banks will not open an account without you showing them the operating agreement. So you definitely want one.
How many properties together? Go ahead, Jake. I'm sorry.
Okay. So how many properties? Again, that really depends on the value of your properties. You got to ask yourself, how much risk do I want to put in each bucket? Okay. So if you have a few smaller condos that are maybe not worth as much, you can pull them together in one LLC. But if you have properties that have very different values, you're going to want to separate them. Okay. It's like a $50,000 condo and a $300,000 multifamily. If you separate them and something happens at the condo, they can't go after your multifamily. But if they're all in the same bucket, all that asset is on the line.
Gotcha.
Jonathan.
Does changing from your name to the LLC trigger transfer tax, Jessica? That's from Jonathan Creative.
So I can't answer that. You're going to have to ask your accountant that. I can tell you when you move it from your name to a trust, it's not going to implicate tax consequences, but I don't know about, honestly, that you have to ask your accountant that question.
Linda is asking, do you buy the property in the name of the LLC and then put it into a trust, or do you do it the other way around, Jessica?
So if you can buy it in the name of your LLC, well, let me say this, it depends. Okay. I want to say this. If you have the way you do it, Chris, you were saying you create the trust, right there at the closing table, right? And the LLC. So they can be done simultaneously. You can set them up before or after. Every deal is different. I don't know if I answered her question, but it really is dependent on what you already have in place. If you already have an LLC in place, you do one land trust for each property, but the LLC beneficiary can have multiple properties in it.
There you go. Good one. Carmen, if you have property in another state like Ohio, should I set up the LLC in that state or in California in the state that they live?
So that's a great question. And it's something that you have to discuss with your accountant, because when you open an LLC in a state different than you live in, you're basically filing as a foreign entity. So you're paying taxes in your home state and that state. And that may be okay. It may be beneficial to you to do that, but you should have a consultation with an accountant. And if you can Google them, there are several, like asset protection companies out there that have accountants and attorneys on staff to help you figure this out together. They're out there. You Google it, you'll find it. But that's a personal decision based upon your taxes where you live. But you can open them in multiple states, but there will be tax implications for that. Some people love it. Some people think that it's, so much better to file like a Wyoming LLC because you're not required to publish anything about the members. So people like that. There may be worth it to you in your situation to form a foreign LLC,
Hey man, what's the best tax structure for LLC, for an LLC with flipping houses, C Corp or S Corp, Jessica?
Okay. So C Corp is not even, a C corporation is something totally different. And that would be a conversation for a totally different episode. So whether or not if you're flipping houses, you can be an LLC. You can take the S election, which is the benefit of being the S corporation. And again, it's a question of how much money your business is taking in. Gotcha. So I encourage you to talk to your accountant to explain that to you. The S corporation election is if you are making a significant amount of income. It helps offset whether you're paying Social Security tax or you're taking it more as a disbursement, like a profit sharing type of situation. And then if you get to a point where your company is so big, then yes, you may want to be a corporation, but that's a question that, really is fact specific to what you have at that moment. Okay. So, and I'm happy to have, private consultations with viewers and stuff, but, okay. It's not necessarily that simple of an answer.
We put your email down at the bottom for finally. I got your email if you want to get in touch with us at the bottom. All right, Jessica, I know your time's been crazy. You want to go ahead and wrap it up? Or you want
No, that's if it's okay with you. I gotta run.
Yeah, go ahead. Get out of here.
But I will say this: it's a great conversation to have. Don't be intimidated by it. It's pretty easy, but you just have to keep up with your bookkeeping and you have to have a good accountant to help you make sure you take advantage of every benefit and make sure you're following the rules. And, when you use, there's no reason you can't set it up yourself, but I highly recommend at least doing a consultation with an attorney once. So you understand what are the rules? How do I maintain it? What are the requirements that I'm supposed to do? So that you enjoy that protection and you make sure you notify your insurance carrier, all these people. And once you're an LLC, you're no longer signing things in your personal name. right? Remember, you're signing as a member of this business. So
Managing member.
right. So when you hire your pest control or your general
How they
contractor,
sign it, Jay?
whatever,
Tell them how to sign it.
right? Sign your contracts, your leases, everything in your name as member of LLC. Okay. That is critical.
Yes. I just put managing member, but managing member of LLC, whatever Jessica recommends.
Yeah, that's fine. That's correct too. So I will say this, do your research, figure out based on where you live and what you own, what the right structure is for you, but take advantage of all of these legitimate opportunities to protect yourself. Okay. If you've been in business long enough, you'll hear, you'll get burned eventually.
Yep.
So start protecting yourself. We live in a world where people just sue all the time. So set yourself up right. It's worth the expense.
Okay, sounds good. Roundup family, thanks for hanging out with Jessica and I. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel here, like the content, hit the thumbs up button, and we will see you once again next Friday. Please comment on, because Jessica and I are actually working on an operating agreement to bring to you for an affordable price. So comment on what would you like to, what kind of content would you like to see regarding getting your own operating agreement for your LLC set up right from an attorney. It's gonna be nice.
And I'll try and go back in and reply to some of the comments that I didn't get to answer,
Okay.
for the replay. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Okay, bye.
Take care. Bye.